Hi, everyone. My name is Jay Agner, and welcome to the First Customer Podcast. Today, I'm lucky enough to be joined by Carl Starkey of AWSM Sauce. We are in the awesome studio of SBX, kind enough to have us today. Carl, welcome, my friend.
Thanks for having me. This is a long time coming.
Is it?
It feels
like we've known each other for a long time.
It does.
I actually
maybe it was a couple weeks.
Well, yeah, maybe. I met. What was it? Founders 30. I think I saw you on.
Probably the first Founders 30 with Joe Mercer, R.I.P.
Yes.
And then should I say that?
He's not dead.
Right. He's still. But then it was the PAC conference.
The PAC conference.
I saw you in action.
It was hard not to see you. You're very tall, and your co-founder's very tall.
Yeah, not as tall as Paul.
Well, all right. So let's go over your background. I am very curious where someone as large and gregarious as you came from and a little bit of your backstory. You teased me with some of it earlier.
A little bit.
Where are you from originally?
So generally I answer saying the Midwest. And the reason is I lived in Indiana, Michigan, Illinois, and Minnesota.
Lots of corn.
Before coming, no, that's more Iowa. Before coming to Pennsylvania. So my background's a little interesting. I met my mom when I was 8 and I met my father when I was 15. Was in and out of foster care and in and out of school. And I finally landed in Minnesota. So when you say like where did you grow up, it kind of depends on what you're asking.
Okay.
Like if I don't like you and I don't want to talk to you, then I'll just be like, oh, I'm from Minnesota.
All right.
And you're
well,
like,
you didn't
oh,
say that.
Okay,
you didn't
nice.
say that. You told me your whole
Yeah, I like you. You're a nice guy.
origin story. So Minnesota, and then how did you get to Philly?
Or
Pennsylvania?
I used to play lacrosse, and I was a practice squad player and came to Philly to play lacrosse and got cut by the Wings. And
What does practice squad just means? Like you're not a starting player?
Yeah.
Like you're good enough to be on the team, but...
Yeah, I mean, so the indoor game is a travel heavy game, so a lot of Canadians come down to play, and so they'll come in on a Friday, get a practice in, and so they want to have an opposite team look to get ready, and they'll play two games and then head out.
And that was you.
I was just banging bodies, yeah.
How long? How many years did you do that? Or how many months? How many days?
3 years.
Okay.
3 years.
All right.
Yeah. So I came to Philly, which is really interesting in the sport. The sport's it's super old in the U.S., but it's relatively new on mainstream. And so Minnesota was such a young market. That's where I started our first company. It was in lacrosse in Minnesota. Came to Philly, and this is an older market, and so you kind of cut your teeth here, or you don't.
Right.
And so I got cut.
Wow.
Didn't make it.
I don't want to jump to the next question, but so I won't. Tell me about after you got cut. What was the deal? Did you just go, oh my God, I'm gonna move back to Minnesota and like do whatever they do in Minnesota, or did you have a plan?
No, I moved to Minnesota or to Philadelphia to play, but then also had a company called Red Line Lacrosse. So we made custom carbon fiber and Kevlar lacrosse sticks.
Okay.
The strongest on the market, and we wanted to expand, and Philadelphia is a much bigger market than in Minnesota. And so our goal was to try and set up shop here as well. But yeah, and when I got here, there was a little bit of a freak out moment. Fortunately, I was living with my roommate's mom in Kennett Square.
Come on, man. That's probably a story for another podcast.
Shout out to Henry. So then the Franks. So I wasn't by myself completely. So I had a little bit of support. And I just you take the next step after playing, you coach. And so I fell in love with coaching. I had started coaching in Minnesota, came to Philadelphia, and when I was done playing, coached, and then worked at an entrepreneurship center at what was Philadelphia University, is now Jefferson.
Right.
And so that was the first serious job.
You were making hockey sticks?
Lacrosse sticks.
How did you come into that? Did you just...
So it's a little bit of a long story, but I didn't come up with the idea.
Well, yeah, I figured you didn't invent lacrosse sticks.
In Minnesota, a friend of mine had the idea, and we were basically sitting around like, hey, we could make these custom here, and they'd be different. So what we were looking at is making a stick for the player versus the position. So if you think about in hockey or in lacrosse or any sort of stick sport, generally you make like a defenseman stick or an offensive stick, or it's like the curve of the toe. And what we wanted to do was make a stick for Jay. Say, how do you play? You might play attack or midfield. What's a stick that's going to help you? And so create different flexion based off of how you cut the carbon, how you lay the carbon. So
and did you get in the weeds? You were like making sticks.
we were making them. We
Like,
rented.
you were in there, just
yeah.
like pressing like carbon together,
we
making
built
sticks.
we built Charlie, I think he might have been in the family, but had a boat shop. They were decaling boats.
Okay. So
And
there
the
was
second,
some stuff. There was some equipment.
some second floor, we built out this like manufacturing facility. We built our own press using like the shock system of a semi.
See, that's cool.
It was cool.
That's pretty impressive.
It was there, and he was a carbon engineer, so he had the engineering background. So
Okay.
he came from like, I think it was either head cycle or like head tennis rackets.
Okay. Oh yeah.
So he had some
okay.
serious experience. And there was a competitor in the same market, Epic, and now he is I think their lead carbon engineer.
And what was your role in that mix?
Just look good.
Just
Look
be the
really
face of the
good.
stick.
Yeah, but actually, yeah, it was sales. So my story, we started, and lacrosse certainly doesn't pay, and trying to be a
Right.
practice squad player is not the move.
Right.
And so I started coaching on this summer circuit, and I would go week to week, different states, just selling sticks. We'd send orders back. I mean, it's crazy when you look back. I still have some of the records, like an order sheet,
Right.
and they'd fill out like their credit card info
Yeah.
like, on the paper.
Yep. Yep.
We'd take that, I'd clip my board, go back, scan it,
And you
send
guys
it to
would make the
Charlie.
sticks.
He would make them, send them to my hotel, and I'd hand them out.
Wow.
Yeah, it was crazy. We moved about 300,000 sticks.
300,000 sticks.
Yeah.
In the top of a
In a little boat
boat
shop.
shop.
Top of a boat shop. White Bear Lake, Minnesota.
Wow, I think we can wrap there, folks. That's it. That's all. That was the coolest part I'm going to hear today, probably. Well,
So we sold that, came here, and I
tell
got
me about the selling of the stick business. I am curious. Like, how do you sell it? Like, we just like, hey guys, like we make sticks. Do you want to buy us? Like, how do you actually do that?
So the truth is I was at Oregon State doing a camp, and I did it 3 years in a row. And there was an executive from the Bauer Sporting Group, which is under Nike Lacrosse, whose son was at it. And so you can't say everything, but there's the process that you go down to acquire it. We separated the brand from the patents, so we did have patents, and so they acquired that. And then this guy in California tried to extend the brand. It didn't do
work.
well, no.
Well, it didn't have you. You were the face of the brand.
Yeah. It was, and but we did. It wasn't just me. What was kind of cool, and I took into the next endeavor was we essentially created influencer marketing 10 years before it was a thing.
Okay.
So we created these contracts that I would give college players or recent pros their own stick.
Right.
And then if they sold any of them, then we would give them a commission. So we had 24 signed athletes. Some of them went on to be big name athletes, like Under Armour athletes, Nike athletes.
Really?
Yeah. They were like some serious firepower, but we were way early.
So I do want to hear how you carried that into the next afterward. But what after you sold, was it straight into AWSM Sauce? What was the? I can't imagine you were like,
no.
Let's go from sticks
go
to ketchup, and then like went on.
So we, I say we. So I took a little bit of time. I was working at Philadelphia University in the Entrepreneurship Center. Have you heard of Blackstone? It's a massive VC.
Oh yeah.
So they threw money into the university scene to try and stimulate startup culture at the college level, and then you fund an early idea, and the hope is then you got teeth into it as it grows. And Philadelphia University was just super small. There was also one at Temple, and they're like 10x our size, and so it was challenging. But there were a couple of things that came out of it. One of them is Super Coffee, which is a $500 million company started in Philly by the DeSico brothers. And so they started. He was a freshman playing basketball, and wanted a coffee in the morning,
right?
And was putting oils in it, but they were sort of congealing out. He's like, "We want to fix that." And so he came in into the Entrepreneurship Center, and we started working on business model. And from day one, and then I think it was there was like you couldn't work with them for a certain amount of time, so I had taken another job, and then a couple years later, they had moved. He had dropped out, became a Peter Thiel Fellow, moved to D.C., and was working out of a WeWork in D.C. I took a job in D.C., and then my first call, when I started working with them, my first call was to Kyle Harrison to come in and do essentially the idea was, how do you build an ambassador program?
Okay, right.
So like similar idea, influencer marketing ambassador programs was what it was.
Right.
Modeled off of like the Red Bull.
Mm-hmm.
You've got the Red Bull girls doing all the things.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I was like, look, this is what we did for Redline. Let me see if I can get it started here. And so it didn't work out exactly the same way from a beverage brand to a stick manufacturer, but jumped into the lacrosse world and sort of helped usher that in. And then that relationship has continued, and now Jordan is on our board for AWSM Sauce while running Super Coffee, which is...
But lacrosse when did that really start to get noticeable? Because I haven't even heard of the Wings before like a few years ago.
I mean, they've been here since the 80s. So
right, but like when? But I mean, like when did people who are not in the lacrosse scene like?
I think over the last, there's been a couple of figures over the last decade. It's really hit its stride in terms of getting into mainstream media. Now they're broadcasting games. They created the PLL. They folded the MLL. They created the PLL. And now they're paying players a livable wage. So the game is growing at the lowest level from the youth side, which drives a lot of attention and a lot of eyes. And the PLL has done an amazing job on the content side, which drives eyes as well. And so where it was when we started, Instagram was brand new. I was like opposed to it. I was like, I don't even want to do this. And now you can't even start a business without it.
What were you making as a practice squad guy? Like how much a year?
A $3,500 contract.
For a year?
Oh, yeah. They pay for insurance, though.
Well, that's nice of them.
Not nothing. Yeah.
Close to it. All right. So are we ready to talk about AWSM Sauce yet? Are we there? Are we there in the story of Carl?
Yeah, I think so.
Entrepreneurship Center.
Yeah,
you did some stuff there.
So then I jumped into the tech world, and I was at Comcast. So I landed at Comcast. So I was... The joy of my career. I was working at Comcast, and then I was coaching at Westtown. I was coaching lacrosse, which is a boarding school, Quaker boarding school in Westchester. And Paul was the AD. So my co-founder, AWSM Sauce, was the AD. And I came in with, I don't know, I'd have an idea a month. Like you're in that world, in the tech world, ideas fly like crazy. And so I had I forget I think it was Craft Beer Direct. It was an idea of an app that you can get craft beer, like a 4-pack. We wanted to call it the Rack. So you'd order it, ship it to a pickup location, and you'd come pick it up. And I think I pitched Paul on investing. And he was like, nah, I'm not into it. Well, I maintain it's a good idea, Paul.
It probably exists, right? It seems like such a good idea. It has to exist by now.
The back-end logistics of shipping alcohol is tricky.
It's still a mess, right?
Distribution is, it's it's a whole legislation game.
Yeah, we won't get into PA politics right now.
So anyway, throwing around ideas, and then when COVID hit, like schedules kind of slowed down a little bit. You're not coaching as much, and so we just started throwing around ideas. And Paul was like, "I want to start a sauce brand," and I was like, "I'm in. Yeah, it's great. Let's do it."
Why did he want to? He's not here to answer, but why would he want to start a sauce brand?
In his words, he believes that his sauces are better than your sauces.
But he was making sauces at home clearly before this or something?
He's grilling, smoking. He's got a lovely 20-year grilling career under his belt. Okay. So nothing professionally, but hosting parties, and he's a great cook.
I've never heard of a grilling career. That's pretty.
The grilling career. So he's a great cook, and he got to the point where he was like, it'd just be fun to have a brand and start. Right. Now, what's interesting was one of the players at Westtown's family had Herlockers mustard, has a brand. Have you ever had Herlockers? It's a dipping mustard.
No. I thought
regionally successful, and so our first call was to Neil.
Okay,
we're like, what is this world like? If we were to start a brand,
right?
How does it go?
Yeah,
and so I'm not overly clear on the exact trajectory. I just remember the 1 a.m. nights in Paul's kitchen, mixing up, put too much salt. I've got this video of Paul being like recording it. You can see he's so tired. He's like, yeah, we added 2 portions too many on the salt. Super annoying. And we were preparing to pitch Y Combinator. So from the tech world, Y Combinator is all the thing, right? And then Techstars is next. So we were like, well, let's try and prove this idea to see if the general startup community thinks it's a good idea. and they had an application that was due in like 2 weeks. And so we had to send samples and all the stuff. We had to make a video.
What did you send there? Did you send just ketchup you guys made in the kitchen? Or
Oh, yeah.
it wasn't awesome sauce yet?
I mean, it was awesome. We called it awesome sauce. The first thing we did, which I maintain was the best move, is we created a brand. Now, it was $350 to do that.
Right.
We came up with a name. We got a logo. But then I think what's kind of cool, and Paul and I talk about this now, is we have always had something with a purpose.
Yeah.
And the brand has always carried that. Like in the beginning, we're just trying to figure it out. Where do we fit?
Right.
But now, as we go into food service and we've pivoted, we can always maintain we've got the brand and it stands for sustainability.
Yeah.
It stands for a better product. And so if you have gone right into food service where maybe the brand isn't the thing that you're putting money into, you might miss some of that. And so right away, like week 2, we came up with a name for the idea. And we got a mock-up. It was this logo. We got a mock-up of the logo.
Beautiful logo.
Yeah. So we pitched to Y Combinator. They said no. We were like, that makes sense. And somehow we got picked up on a TV show. So we were on $1 Billion Idea.
Right.
And then in that same whirlwind, I was on Clubhouse, my Clubhouse bender.
Okay.
I did a 3-day Clubhouse bender when
Wow.
Paul went on vacation. And we scooped up some capital. We got picked up for a TV show, and we got accepted to Techstars. And so that was the launch of. We weren't even an official company at that point.
Right.
We gotten picked up, and I think we incorporated in that process. And we started in November. We started November of 21.
Did you have any sales at that point? Were
Zero
you
sales.
Selling? You were just like
Zero sales. It was all an idea.
It is crazy though. Like you hear about brand recognition and how important it is, and like I can see now how like that did carry you guys from like whatever the hell you're doing in the kitchen through what you're doing.
Yeah,
today.
I mean, at that point, we were just selling the idea.
Yeah.
I mean, what we were trying to do is before we throw what the trouble with or a big difference between tech and products is you have cash sitting in inventory.
Right.
And so that's what we wanted to avoid as long as possible.
Yeah.
Like we need to prove this out as much as we can before we actually sink some cash into product that's sitting in.
And you guys just mix shit up and then send it out to
That's exactly
Techstars, and then and that got you in the door.
Oh yeah, we had a little sealer. We'd make ketchup. We'd add some truffle in there and mix it up. We'd send that.
Wow,
it was fun.
How did you do on Techstars?
Well, it's not really a competition.
Well, I mean,
but I think we did the best.
Isn't Techstars? What am I thinking? I'm thinking of Tech Front. No, what am I thinking of? Something. Anyway,
I don't know. So we went out. We did the Techstars thing, and our first customer, which applicable to this podcast, our first customer group was what we call the originals. So the sticker right here, the originals. So what it was family and friends. We sold before we made, and we sold the idea. It was a 3-box set, and really what we wanted to do was prove that customers like this, they like the flavor, and get it out and get feedback. And so we built out this concept of 3 boxes. You get the sauces, then you get the jar, and we got these like squeeze bottles. Mm-hmm. Amazon like throttled us. We were trying to buy squeeze bottles left. So they were like, no, we're not sending you these. We're like, Jesus, damn. Then we did the jar to see, okay, format change from a squeeze bottle to a jar. So it was like fill the squeeze bottle to here, add a packet in, shake it up. Then the jar. And then we did a different flavor. And so, and then we added a shirt as well. And so the originals was like 120 customers, 80% of which was in our network, right. Our friends and family. And so we packed those up. But from a learning perspective, it was crazy. I mean, we were up till like 2 a.m. packaging these boxes.
But did you go? When did you go to the dried stuff? To the actual?
Oh, that was day one.
Okay, so you did start there.
The business was always founded on. Okay. Yeah, I mean, when we first talked to Neil and we found out the hurdles in distribution and the struggles on putting product on shelf, we were like, I don't want to join this. We need to blow it up. We need to do it differently. So
that's a huge part of the whole story, though. It's like how.
Maybe I disrespected that. I'm sorry.
You did. You really kind of skipped. You screwed up the whole pocket.
Dang.
No, but that seems like such an important like moment where you guys were like, we're not going to make sauce. We're going to make just dried stuff that you turn into sauce. Like that's a big.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I guess I glossed over it because in our head it was just part of the thought process to get to a product. I think ultimately we wanted to get a product.
Right.
We wanted to have a product that we believed in, we thought was cool and fun, and made an impact.
And you thought dried stuff was the easiest way to get to that.
As we started talking about, if we started with wet sauce and then we got to whatever we were coming out with, what's the journey? We have a Google Doc that we went back and forth on, and we put our initials next to a comment. Like,
right.
Clearly, we know who made the comment.
Right.
So we're like writing in, and it just bounced back and forth. And we're like, what if we made sauce kits? What if that was the move?
Right.
So then you like mixing it up yourself, and then we're like, okay, sauce kits. What was pre-mixed? And then you're like, can you do this just from a powder, or you just add water? We thought it was going to be an add oil, add vinegar, add water, add this. And you're like, well, you don't need to do that.
Do you remember that moment when you're like, holy shit, it's just adding water? That seems like a pretty big, like, wow, we've got a product that we can easily distribute,
Jay,
and you just need water.
I respect that you're saying that. It didn't play out exactly
No?
like that. It was not like the aha moment. Like,
I'm just making sure. I mean, it feels like, and I know how that goes.
I respect that.
You look back and it was a big moment, but
it was
at
very
the time
much
you're just like, we're fucking going for this, man.
Yeah, it was very much a Google Doc.
That's awesome.
Back and forth with ideas. Maybe a day.
Not even like bolded or anything. Like this is
some indentation,
something,
some bullets,
italics at least. So. That it all kind of goes.
I wish we had that sort of climactic, like.
Well, you could have just said that was the answer, and then it would have.
Can we cut this?
Restart. Just roll it back.
Yeah.
So one of my other questions is always like, what held you back initially? But it sounds like you kind of worked through a bunch of those problems without really talking about it on this podcast. But going from what are we going to make to how do we get it there, and then the friends and family thing I think is super interesting, right? Because as somebody who hates market research, I hate it so much. I feel like I'm bothering people, and like I hate being a nuisance.
It gets ASCII. Yeah.
So like, how did you get over that? Like, how did you reach out to people? Just like, hey, we've got some sauce. Like, who's interested? And that was kind of, you got lucky and got 120 people. Like, how did you go about that without being annoying?
So we at that point we were both full time, so we had jumped in, and I think there's some like. Just in your network, I think there's some excitement about that. Like people respect that. Yeah. Okay, they took the leap.
Yeah.
And food is the ultimate connector. Like it's the easiest thing. It does not feel as ASCII to be like, hey, can you for $100 jump into this and try it and give us feedback? And so we'd send the box, and then we'd have like a form that they'd fill out to say like, how did it mix? Send us a little video, and it was fun. Right. It was engaging. It was still in the midsection of COVID, so people were at home already trying stuff. Like this was in the height of the kitchen culinary explosion.
Right.
And so people were mixing up. They'd add this, they'd add that. They'd tell us what worked, what didn't work. It became fun.
You got a lot of feedback, like actionable feedback.
It was very fun. It did, in no way did the originals ever feel ASCII.
Right.
And we didn't need to hit a certain quota. It was very much like we might sell 10 of these, we might sell 10,000 of them.
And the goal was to
we would have cut off.
Yeah, if you sold 10,
that would be crazy.
But what was the actual goal? Was the goal to leave that exercise with like the product that you're going to go forward with? What were you guys trying to get out of that? Just get it moving.
Feedback.
Just get it moving.
Just get feedback and see what it's like to fulfill orders.
Right.
I mean, you have to remember we set up a Shopify, like we'd never fulfilled an order before.
Right.
We're like, oh. What happens when an order hits?
Yeah, packaging and all that stuff. Like
all the packaging. We found a designer off of Clubhouse as well, and she did a phenomenal job designing these boxes. So we got those printed. And the first one, you have to guess on how many we should order, and then the next ones you kind of know who's re-upping, and so or how many people you've got. And so it was all very much just like, okay, we've built this idea. Let's get it moving. Let's get the cart going. So we got our co-packer to actually make product in professionally sealed packages.
Right.
We got that in. We packaged them up. It's like thinking about getting the stickers. What's the unboxing experience like? And so yeah, it was never. We never felt like, hey, can I get 5 minutes of your time? It was never like that where you feel burdensome.
Right.
It was very much like, yeah, you want to try sauce? We got this cool
sauce
idea.
I guess sauce is one of those like, I'll try it kind of things.
Yeah,
That lends itself to that. And
it
you
was
just
fun.
literally just like reached out to people. That's
And yeah, I mean our Instagram and you know.
How much money had you dumped in at that point, or it been like kind of invested? Like what did it cost you guys in time and effort to kind of get that far? You were like what 2 years in at that point?
No, officially at that point we started that was probably like month 5.
Wow, okay.
That's a good question. I don't think we've ever tallied up like our out-of-pocket expenses going into it.
Yeah,
we did do an official raise, a friends and family raise,
right?
And we were able to raise $760, sort of at the end of Techstars.
Okay.
But I don't know. It was under 100,000.
Okay,
for sure. Yeah. Well, I don't think we've actually ever tallied up like what did it cost us to actually do all the stuff.
Well, I mean the branding stuff and all that's not free, right?
No, the branding piece. So we rebranded while we were going through Techstars, and that's where we got to the different logo with a little bit more of a food, like a softer edges, flowing like sauce. Like you got to, and we went through an agency with that, so we did the traditional, you know, vetting them out. We talked to like 20 agencies. It was crazy.
So then you went on, and then how did we get to Founders 30 from that? Like when was that? That was in 2022.
That would have been 21, I think.
Or 21 maybe.
Probably.
So there was some amount of time between there, right?
So yeah, maybe it was 22. So we found Founders 30 because Philadelphia is an interesting use case in fundraising. So it's pretty well known, Silicon Valley tech money, New York VC money, and you can find those pockets. In the food world, there's this sort of plus sign. You have LA and New York, which has money and influence. So your content creators, your investors. And then you have Minneapolis, Denver, and Austin as sort of your CPG hub, right? So Austin's a lot of beverage. Denver's got great CPG and beer, craft beer, and then Minneapolis has like the large General Mills and the large targets there as well. And so we're off of that a little bit. And so a lot of what we got lucky in that the program that we did was in Minneapolis, and so we were kind of like there. And I came to Philly from Minneapolis. So that was total happenstance. There was a lot that we did going up to New York to find venture capital, and in Philadelphia, the money it moves a little non-traditional in terms of the VC that you would expect. You go to a VC firm and whatever, and so in Philly, we have been and we still are looking for a way of sort of planting a flag, and so we went to Ben Franklin. Ben Franklin has since sort of cut out the CPG, the work they do with CPGs. And one of the things that popped up in that research was the Bucks Built program. And so I connected with John and jumped into the Founders 30.
Did John give you money? Did he give you lots of personal money?
I can't disclose how many figures, but
he didn't give you anything. You paid him back in ketchup.
Can't disclose the figures, but there were a lot of O's.
All right, we'll keep it there. All right. Well, your story so far has made a lot more sense than I thought coming from you. I thought it was just going to be throwing stuff at the wall and just. But it's made sense so far. So I do want to go back.
Smooth as ketchup, huh?
Smooth as ketchup. So, but the fact that you started with a brand and leaned on that so heavy throughout the process, I think, has served you well and will continue to serve you well. If you had to start it back over and just go out and launch your own, let's not say dried ketchup brand, but if you were going to launch a company, a business, a product, what would be your first steps to doing that if you had to do it all over again?
Yeah, I think looking back, now that we've pivoted to food service.
Yeah, we need to talk about that too.
And food service makes so much sense for our format in so many ways. Again, 1,000%, Paul and I talked about this today. The fact that we started with a brand and took that to food service or taking that to food service, it carries the message, which is totally valuable. I think we strayed away from food service initially. I think it was frightening. Truthfully, we just didn't know anything about it.
Right.
And we looked at the consumer side and we're like, we can do that. We can get a website, we can get a product, like we can muscle our way through that and learn along the way.
Right.
food service is like, man, you have to have contacts. You have to understand this. And we've proven that. We've brought an amazing team who knows food service, and we're so excited about it. So I think what we would have done is just given all channels a little bit more of a shot. So we looked at sort of the e-com world differently than we looked at the retail world. That's also scary to us. Like, how are we getting on shelves and competing and getting in distribution? And, just getting on shelves is one thing, but then you need the turns and the volume. And so we looked at retail and we're like, that's not the place to start. That's, we don't have those contacts in our pocket. We looked at food service and you're like, man, that's account driven and distribution driven. And so, and then we also looked at sort of unknowingly looked at restaurants as a different, independent restaurants as a different channel, although they work very similar to what food service is. And so I think we would have just done a little bit more digging to find that out. And we, it's okay. Like, I think in the beginning, everything's open. You're going to talk to advisors who are like, you got to try it all. You got to figure out where you get in, where you fit in. And then you figure out where you actually fit in, your product market fit, they call it. And so we've pivoted, and it's made all the sense in the world. I think that, looking back, we probably would have just pushed that a little bit more.
Is that like a B2B kind of vibe? It is B2B, right? I mean,
totally.
We're working with the companies that are putting the sauce in the places.
At this point, it's really looking at full supply chain and figuring out where you provide value. And so from the supplier side, we're providing value. Our product is providing value to the brand. Like, AWSM Sauce grows as our product improves. Then there's the distribution. Our product is so much lighter than the water-based sauces that you're shipping around the world. And so we're not only saving space and weight, but we're also saving cost. So that creates a push from the distributor. They're like, hey, we like this product better than the incumbents because of all of these value adds. And so they want to push it down to their customers. Well, then there's a pull from the operator side who's saying, hey, whether it's space savings or a fresh product or a certain flavor, like, we really like this, what we can do with AWSM Sauce. And so that creates the pull. And so what's really exciting right now is, when you look at distribution or like the shipping logistics on e-com, you're not really providing much value there. I mean, they're just moving product, right? On distribution, your sort of Cisco's and US Foods and PFGs are looking for products to place with their customers. Right. And so we're able to provide a value that's sort of way more dynamic than a standard structure e-com.
Now, was there bolded text or anything in the Google Doc when you guys decided to make the pivot to food service? Because that was probably a pretty big, exciting switch.
We've retired the doc. Yeah, it has not been a 2-year living doc.
It should be. It sounds like you had a lot of success with it. But what
initially? Yeah.
How did that happen though? What made you finally say, like, let's give it an earnest shot? Was it something that kind of came in the door? Like, how did it happen?
It's a hard question to answer on a short podcast, but a lot of contributing factors over the last 12 months. Just looking at the saturation of consumer brands over the last 24 months, and our product inherently does better with trial. So trying the product is super important, and that's hard to do over social media as an e-com brand. So our process is we sort of have to introduce the idea, show how it works, try and drive a trial, and then get a sale. And we just didn't raise enough capital to do that earnestly, full-heartedly. And so as we were starting to raise money, you just start to get the feedback of like, I love this brand, I love the story, I love what you're doing. I'm not super excited about e-com right now, just given the environment. But, if this was a B2B play, I see a ton of benefit.
Right.
And you hear that enough. I think the challenge to an entrepreneur is to be stubborn enough to push through hardship, but be humble enough to change when you need.
That's a good. I think I like that.
I think that's really hard to figure out. It's really hard because you just don't know if around the next corner is the thing that you needed to hold on for.
Yep.
Or if you're giving that up and turning this corner is the thing that you needed to do. And so, it's a 12-month learning process for us to finally get there. And our initial pivot wasn't right. So we went food service thinking we were going to service the front of house. So we thought we were going to displace pumps.
Right.
And now we're actually very focused on back of house.
Well, wait, when I saw you at the packed thing, weren't you pitching
Exactly.
the front of the house thing?
That's it. Yeah.
It was like the doing
pump.
the thing and the
Yeah,
okay.
I did it right on stage.
Yeah, you did
Remember
it on
that?
stage. Well, that was It was
Threw a little dance.
It was memorable. It was good. It was one of the best ones there.
I appreciate that. They didn't agree, but
yeah, it's fine. They just have money. It's all right. It's not a big deal.
So yeah, we've refocused our pivot since then
On back end. What is back end of a ketchup?
So back of house. So on on food service, there's different formats. You've got front of house, which is your dispensers. You've got single serve, which is your tearaways. You've got tabletop, which is your squeeze bottles, and then you've got back of house, where people are using that as ingredients. They're buying gallon versions of all the condiments that we know and love, and those are being shipped to them in 50-pound cases.
Right.
We can take that 50-pound case and turn it into a 15-pound box that yields the same amount. And so in that way, it gets our foot in the door. It gets us some revenue. It gets us some traction. Gets us some learnings. And then we can sort of reassess and say, okay, where do we want to go next? Front of house? Do we want to go back to consumer?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I could see the front of the house being like, with the brand especially, like if once people bite on it and like they get it, then it's going to just kind of snowball. Yeah. One thing I keep wondering, what is preventing Heinz or whoever else from coming along and being like, here's our version of it back of house, and we already have this stuff. Like, how have you guys fought that off or planning to fight that off?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's three quick answers. One, it's a massive ship, so trying to pivot is hard. They already sell ketchup, so then cannibalizing their own with a new product doesn't make sense. They're vertically integrated, so they own many of the farms that they get product from, and so their sort of their workflow isn't ready to support that. And then the last one is authenticity. They're not a sustainability brand, so it doesn't make sense for them to try and play in that. Like it's better for them to watch a brand grow and say, let's join forces rather than let's go and try and compete in a space that we're not authentically.
What about other competitors other than just Heinz? Like, how are you guys kind of giving them the stiff arm? How are you keeping that at bay? Or just being better yourselves? Yeah,
I think so. I mean, I guess the other question to a founder is how much do you focus on them versus you?
Yeah,
like it's generally better to focus on you.
Right.
Be aware of what's going on, but we're building our own business. We're not building theirs.
Nice. That's a good answer. It's a very stern answer. It's a dad answer.
Dadpreneurs.
Don't worry about what we're doing. All right. So you're a big guy. You're tall. I meant tall, not.
Thank you.
You're a handsome, tall guy. You got some kids. How are you? Somebody told me a couple months ago that they were focused on longevity over being fit and being healthy, which I thought was interesting. And I was like, I don't even know what that means at the time. But he told me kind of his routine and like what he does. And like it made a lot of sense to be around for a long time to work on longevity as opposed to just getting big or just getting skinny or whatever. So like, what are you doing for, longevity health wise? I mean, you're in a space that's got to be tempting at all times to just eat like shit, right? I mean, you've got food around you all the time, like sauce, just sprinkling sauce and everything. I mean, how are you keeping that handsome body together?
I appreciate that. I'm probably not where I need to be, but I think the idea of healthy habits is certainly impactful as a founder, because if what you can do on your personal life will translate to what you're doing in your professional life. And so I think the things that I would probably hit on, so I try to wake up early. I think that gives me time to start the day. I think the one thing that I've really honed in on since starting AWSM Sauce is trying to be present. So we have kids, and putting work down can be hard just because, again, it's the same thing. Like that next email might be the thing.
Yep.
And so you want to look at it. But I don't want to teach my kids that not being present is the move, or I undervalue what they're doing in the moment. And so being present is probably the one that I prioritize more than anything. But then waking up early, and I'm looking at my notes. I take notes.
Do you take notes?
You
do take notes. That's a very healthy habit.
I take notes.
Do you take good notes?
Oh, man.
Like when you go back, like, are you like, do you know exactly?
I know you might think it, but I did not go to law school, so I can't judge.
Come on, man. You can't turn the dad off.
But
There was like a groan from like somebody else in here.
Yeah, I try and take notes. Like the one thing that I've learned, it's for me, it's less about are they good notes or bad notes, but did you take them? Because you can always look back on it. So I text myself a lot. If you look at the top, you pin your text messages. It's the wife, the co-founder, and myself.
You can text yourself.
Yeah, sure.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, I text myself all the time. Now you get the text there, so it's like ding ding.
Wow! Instead of just writing in a notes app, you text yourself.
I text myself. Yeah, because I hate the little red bubble, and so I know that about myself. I mean, I guess just being self-aware. In a notes app, I just know myself. I wouldn't go back into it.
Interesting. I Slack myself a lot. I'll send myself a Slack message.
There you go. But same thing. Do you try and keep those fully read? So is that why you do it?
Yeah, for sure. But that's a good point.
So I'll email myself or I'll text myself.
I like that.
And that's
I like that.
I won't open it until I'm like ready to do it.
Right.
So
you inbox zero guy? You like no?
No. I wish Paul is.
Yeah.
He does a great job.
Yeah.
No, mine's at 1908.
Oh God, it hurts, man. That hurts a lot.
It's a good year.
It's going to keep growing too. All right.
You're darn right.
So here's the mystery question, which is great that it's a mystery question because I ask it every podcast, which means that nobody listens to these before they get on because nobody has ever known the answer or the question that I'm about to ask. So it's a fun question, and I'll give you a second to think about it. Maybe steer away from the AWSM Sauce answer to this, but what would you do if you knew you couldn't fail? Anything on earth. Told you I'd give you a second. I'd have to give people a second. I should have written this. Maybe I should have written this down and sent it to you.
What would I do if I couldn't fail? I think I would keep doing what I'm doing.
All right, that's the lamest answer.
I think I'd stick with. I'd stick with starting companies.
All right, I like that. That's fair. You like being an entrepreneur, and you want
Yeah, I like fucking shit up.
Fucking shit up. I like that.
Yeah, I think I'd keep doing that. I mean, the thing that comes to mind is like, you're sort of like jump out of a plane and do crazy shit like that.
Yeah.
Try and swim across the
Mount Everest,
ocean. Yeah, all those things.
Fly a fighter jet, those sort of things.
But those inherently aren't me. I like going against the grain. I like trying new things.
Are you a roller coaster guy? You seem no. You don't like are you scared of them or you just don't like them?
No, I feel like I've done it. I've done roller coasters. It's exciting. I don't like standing in the line for it.
You're not afraid of the drops or anything. You just don't.
No,
you're just done. You've seen all the roller
they feel
coasters.
nice. It's
so
cool.
if there's a big new roller coaster, you might give it a shot. And there was no line.
Yeah, sure.
All right,
sure. I'm not a gambler either. I don't.
No, me either.
I've done it. I've won. I don't. It's not.
You have won. Look, you're wearing your own brand sweatshirt. You've won more than most entrepreneurs. All right,
I appreciate that.
This was awesome, and it's a great studio, and it's you're a great guest, and I hope we
shout out to Vince and Taylor at Sandbox Studios. If you need anything, hit them up.
Media PA. What's the address? 105 West 3rd Street.
Oh wow.
I think I remember.
I never get that. I always send media, and then I'm like, all right, now what is it?
Well, I got to be honest. I was walking around for a little bit because I wasn't quite sure where this place was, but it's a cool little studio. Very cool. Thank you guys for having us.
They're the best.
All right. Well, I think that's it. We'll wrap here. Thanks, man. Thanks for hopping on. Appreciate it, buddy.